Hello everyone, happy Easter. Thanks for tuning in to GWV's on your Easter Sunday. So we've already done one video. We've done our third analogues update for the summer of 2018, a real outside the box sort of update. That one, we're looking at Easter Sundays that occurred on April the 1st and the summers that followed those Easter Sundays / April the 1st. Aren't many of them. Our last Easter Sunday that occurred on April the 1st was way back in 1956, can you believe? So have a look at that, see what you think. It's a bit of a different take on the analogues compared to what we normally do at GWV's. This is a GWV's Sunday Round-Up, so we're going to have your usual eclectic mix of this and that. We're going to look at solar activity, what's happening in the oceans, have a look at a few indexes as well in terms of the Arctic Oscillation, the North Atlantic Oscillation, and the weather for the next week to 10 days. I think after this very delayed spring and ongoing cold weather, we may now be seeing signs of a quite definitive move into spring-like conditions, although it will still be unsettled. I don't see the rain going away anytime soon, but I think temperatures will be starting to lift back towards more like where you'd expect them to be in the middle part of spring. So I'll talk you through everything that's going on in a second, but today is the final day of the competition. We will be closing the competition at 5 o'clock tonight. We've teamed up with metcheck.co.uk weather instrumentation. I'm on Metcheck's homepage right now. So this is metcheck.co.uk. They're our sponsor and they're giving away the weather dial that we've been plugging away at this all week. We started the competition a week ago today, and this is the prize that we're giving away. This is the Climate Combined Weather Dial from metcheck.co.uk. So this is an outdoor unit. It's a thermometer, barometer and hydrometer all in one. Very nice looking and compact unit. It'll tell you what the temperature is outside, it'll tell you what the air pressure is, and it will also tell you what the humidity is as well. It retails at $39.95, but this will be somebody's for free at 7 o'clock this evening. So all week we've been taking your names and addresses to enter you into a prize draw. It is only a prize draw, so you don't have to answer any difficult questions. You just email your name and address to GWV@gmail.com, or you fill out the contact form adding your name and address into the your message box just there. You submit that, it will be sent directly through to GWV's email inbox, and that will get you placed into the prize draw. Now there's only a few hours left for this, so if you've been thinking of getting in before we close competition, you haven't got too much longer to go. We're going to shut this off at 5 o'clock this afternoon. We have to be quite strict about that this year because we've got a lot of entrants to process and put into the bags. It can take quite a long time to get everybody's names and addresses together. We've got over 200, heading up towards 250 now, competition entrants. So we're going to put all of those names into the bag, and then in a video that we place on this page that you're looking at right now, gazlovis.com/competitions.php. There will be a video at 7 o'clock this evening with somebody's name being pulled out of the bag, and the name that is pulled out of the bag will be our winner. They're going to win tonight this combined weather dial from GWV.com and metcheck.co.uk weather instrumentation. Now, for all other runners up, doing something a bit different this year because you get something as well. If you don't win the weather dial, you will get an exclusive discount code that is worth 15% off for you to use in the next 2 weeks, starting this evening and running through to around 15th of April. You will be able to use your 15% off exclusive exclusive netcheck.co.uk discount code, and I'll give you that exclusive code in the winners video tonight. And also there'll be a written post on this page that announces who the winner is, but you'll be able to get your exclusive netcheck discount code then as well. So any product that you want to buy, you'll be able to use your netcheck 15% off discount code exclusive from GWV over the next 2 weeks. So not many more hours to go. If you want to enter the competition, you've got to be in it to win it. So do get emailing. And remember, 5 o'clock is when we're going to close this off, and no more entrants, please, after 5 PM UK time this afternoon. Right, let's get on with our video, and we're going to begin by having a look at the Central England temperature, because we are now out of March. It's first day of April today, of course, so we haven't got the final numbers of the CET yet. That'll probably be released later on today, or maybe tomorrow or Tuesday, and we'll have to wait a little bit longer for the UK-wide stats. When we get those in, I will have a look at those in a video as well. But up to the 30th of March, we were standing provisionally at 4.9 degrees, an anomaly of minus 0.8 degrees below average, so nearly around a degree colder than average, set against 61 to 1990. If we was to compare that to a more modern average, such as 81 to 2010, the deviation would be over a degree colder than average. We might get a downwards correction as well, so expect this to come out a little bit colder than that is showing. So again, another colder than average month, which goes alongside February, of course. That came out at 2.9. An anomaly of minus 0.8 degrees. January came out at 5.3, so we've actually had a colder March than January, which is something that is quite unusual. That doesn't happen all that often. January came out 1.5 degrees above average. It was a mild month in January. So, yeah, it looks like we've had really quite a cold March indeed. It follows on from the cold February, and if we combine February, March together, of course, we are now offsetting that mild month in January. So for 2018 as a whole, we can now say that for the first quarter of it anyway, we're going to be coming out colder than average for the year. Still a long way to go, though, of course. Right, so this is the analogue we was working with for March, right way back when we did the winter forecast at the end of November. We was always expecting a blocked and quite cold setup during the course of March 2018. We didn't include this in the winter forecast when we issued that winter forecast, because March is just outside the winter, so it wasn't really relevant to the winter forecast. But for our own sort of interest, we did produce the analogue for March at the end of November, see what would probably happen as we got through to the end of winter and into the start of spring. You can see that based on the GWV's winter methodology, winter forecast methodology, we was expecting a very blocked month in March, with a lot of high pressure up over Greenland and going back in towards the pole as well, with the below average heights underneath it. Quite clearly a cold pattern drawing the air down from the north and from the northeast like that. So that's the analogue that we had for March 2018, based on our winter forecast methodology, right way back at the end of November. This is the actual reanalysis for March 2018 up to the 29th. So not covering the final 2 days or 3 days, 2 days of the month, but covering the majority of the month. It won't change much from this when we have the full sort of March reanalysis updated at NOAA's website in a day or so's time. So it's a very strikingly similar pattern that we've had in terms of the 500 millibar height anomaly this month compared to the analogue that we had for March 2018. So there's all of the above average heights to our north, particularly again centering itself around Greenland. There's the trough that is underneath it and back into the Atlantic, which leaves us bringing down cold air generally from the north and from the northeast as well. So that's the reanalysis for March 2018. That is the analogue we was working towards for March 2018 when we did the winter forecast at the end of November 2017, even before we got into the winter, and very, very strikingly similar what's happened. So I'm very pleased with how the analogues have worked out for this winter. I think they've been pretty good, pretty accurate, and I think we've done a good job, not only for the winter, but also going into the spring as well. I haven't got the April analogue, but if you remember the spring forecast that we issued, we did suggest in the spring forecast that March likely to have a lot of blocking, fairly cold weather, but April was likely to see a reversion of that blocking, or a weakening of the blocking, if you like, with a reversion back to a more general, typical pattern, which is more sort of high pressure centred to our southwest, low pressure around Iceland, and more of a westerly type month. Probably quite unsettled, but certainly not as cold and blocked in April as we had in March. So it'll be interesting whether that analogue continues to play out, or whether it plays out as we go through the course of April. Of course, we're starting off pretty cold today, so the first day of April is going to be coming out colder than average, and we have got risk of some rain or snow tonight. Going to be a lot of heavy rain, which, I mean, we had that deluge on Good Friday. It's not going to take too much more rain now, I don't think, to really start to lift those river levels up. They're already pretty high. So for one or two places, tonight and tomorrow's rain might just tip one or two of those rivers over the edge, and we may have a few problems with flooding. There is also a risk of snow tonight, so I'll just run you through this. This is a precipitation type forecast from the Halam model. It's done pretty good, I think, this month with the various colds and snowy spells that we've had. It has been generally quite accurate with its snow forecast. So I'm only going to show you this model for Sunday Round-Up. I won't show you any others, but we did do Snow Watch last night. I don't think the situation has changed all that much. I don't think it's changed greatly from what we were seeing in Snow Watch. So this is how Halam has things this afternoon, with the rain piling into the southwest. There it comes, and then it starts to slowly push northwards as we go through into the early hours. In fact, let's just refresh the page, because I think we are just pushing through the 6 o'clock run. So we're going to start off again around this evening, where we have that rain in the southwest, and as we go through towards midnight, we do find some snow beginning to turn up across Wales, you'll notice, from that white hatched area. That's particularly over high ground, but maybe a little bit at lower levels. Further south and west of that, it is generally focusing on rain through to the early hours, when it is bringing some snow through Wales and into the Midlands, quite interestingly. So that's 6 o'clock in the morning, where snowing quite heavily across central and north Wales, and also over into the northwestern part of the Midlands as well. Some quite heavy snow there. It will be wet snow, so probably not settling except over higher ground, but that's a little bit more snowier actually from Halam now compared to what it was showing last night. So a little bit of an upgrade there for Wales and the Midlands tonight and first thing tomorrow morning in terms of snow potential. That's 7 o'clock in the morning. Again, quite heavy snow being focused through many parts of the Midlands, actually. I'm a little bit surprised at how that has upgraded the snow risk through the course of the early hours of this of tomorrow morning and into Bank Holiday Monday morning. Then that pushes northwards, taking the snow risk up to Northern Ireland. So we're 1 o'clock in the afternoon, where we've got a mix of rain or snow across the Northern Ireland, snow pushing up in towards southern Scotland too, a little bit coming down through the Pennine chain, and then further south of that, generally it's outbreaks of rain. Then through the course of Bank Holiday Monday afternoon, we take that snow further northwards, some very heavy snow setting up over Scotland tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. So it takes the time to get up to Scotland, but when it does so, at the end of tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening, you could really know about it. That looks like several hours of really quite heavy snow, and ongoing into Tuesday as well, quite interesting. Not going back to rain, at least up to 8 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday across the bulk of central and northern and eastern Scotland. So that looks really wintry late on tomorrow and then through to Tuesday up across Scotland. And it has upgraded the snow risk a little bit tonight and tomorrow morning for Wales and the Midlands as well. So it's probably going to be an outcast situation. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But it does look as though it's a little bit snowier compared to what we was looking at in Snow Watch last night. So let's just wait and see what we get up to tomorrow morning if we live across Wales and the Midlands. Right, this is sea surface temperature anomalies from NOAA. This is how things were looking last week when we did the Sunday Roundup last week. So, 3 areas of interest. We've got the ENSO region just there, which is the Pacific Ocean. We've got the Northern Pacific Ocean up here, and we've got the Atlantic Ocean over there. That deep blue area through the Pacific is the signature of La Nina. Let's look at the very latest map from NOAA, and this is it. So, very little change in terms of what's happening in the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. We still have that large mass of blue through the Equatorial Pacific, so the signature, albeit a weakening one, but the signature of La Nina continues through the Equatorial Pacific at the moment. Compared to last week, I think the anomalies have perhaps eased slightly through this central part of the Equatorial Pacific. They're still pretty cold, but I think they have eased a little bit. Overall, the La Nina signature is decaying, it's weakening, but it's taking a very, very long time to do so. And we're going to have to wait longer to see where we go into the second half of the year, because when we get to summer, that's when we will either stick with La Nina, we might strengthen it actually through the second half of the year, we might just go to ENSO neutral, or we might even swing into an El Nino. It'll be from the summer, a warm event, an El Nino. It'll be from the summer that we begin to know where we're going in terms of ENSO through the rest of the year and for the winter of 2018-19. Up to the northern part of the Pacific Ocean, so in this northeastern region, close to Canada and North America, still quite cold with the sea surface temperature anomalies up there. Elsewhere in the northern Pacific, particularly in the northeastern Pacific, northwestern Pacific, I should say, it's generally quite warm. In the Atlantic, we're cooling the Atlantic down, so this tropical part of the Atlantic Ocean is beginning to cool a bit. Of course, it's very cold around the UK and Europe. Those are shallow waters. They are prone to temperature changes, but really quite cold there. That's all a legacy of the cold weather that we've had over the past few weeks. Then in the northern Atlantic to the south of Greenland, generally looking quite cool in that region as well. So overall, the Atlantic is fairly cool, although the central part of the ocean a little bit warmer in that region. On to solar activity next. We didn't have solar activity in last week's Sunday Roundup. We left it out, so this is the first time we've looked at the solar disk and the GWV solar activity tracker for a couple of weeks. This is the solar disk on our side of the disk today from solarham.net. Almost virtually spot free, although we do have one little sunspot just there. So activity is officially with Solarham at very low levels and is expected to remain at very low levels for the next 3 days. This is the GWV Sunday Roundup Solar Activity Tracker, just updated by a good friend James Ackrill. Big thank you to James as ever for sending this through. So we remain at very low levels for solar activity. You remember 2 weeks ago we actually took a step down. So back in January and February the trend lines were in that sort of area. 2 weeks ago we just started to take a further step down in the trends. So the trend lines were going down to around there, and we've maintained that very low level over the past 2 weeks. I can tell you that from the thick green and thick red lines just there, they are telling us that solar activity over the past 2 weeks has been at a very, very low and reduced level. We're getting many days now that don't have sunspots, and the days that have sunspots, they're indicated by those orange spikes just there. Those days that have sunspots are getting increasingly minimal. So if we go back, we can go right way back to 2017 with the solar activity tracker, you'll see that generally it was the days that didn't have any sunspots back in the spring of 2017 that were in the minority. There are a few days there through the spring into the early summer of 2017 that didn't have any sunspots, but most days actually have sunspots indicated by all of these orange spikes. They're fairly low levels of sunspots generally, but most days, but this time last year, did have sunspots. Now you can see that most days actually don't have sunspots. Most days are clear, and the days that have sunspots are becoming increasingly rare. And this is exactly what you'd expect to see at this point in the solar cycle. We're heading into solar minimum. We're not yet at solar minimum. We'll arrive at true solar minimum probably in around a year's time. But it's getting ever closer, and so sunspots are weakening in the sun. The sun is kind of going to sleep. Well, it's not really going to sleep because it will start to increase again as we go into solar cycle 25. But for the time being, the sun is weakening, and so the number of sunspots that we have on a day-by-day basis is becoming less and less. When we get to solar minimum, we will have several days, if not weeks, maybe even months, without any sunspots, or hardly any sunspots at all, and that's when we'll know that we're in true solar minimum. So the shift towards solar minimum continues. The reason we look at that is that there's an association between weak levels of solar activity, so kind of like around solar minimum, and an increased chance of northern blocking over the North Pole. And blocking in the winter is a route to pushing cold air out of the pole, getting cold winter. So when you're around solar minimum, you increase the chance of colder winters for the UK and for Europe too. Very interesting, but we have had a colder winter for this past winter, and it's gone on into March. At the same time, solar activity is weakening very rapidly. You never say one thing is directly leading to another, so I'll just leave that there. This is the Arctic oscillation observed and forecast chart. The black line tells where we've been with the Arctic oscillation. Red lines at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go. So we went very negative with the AO at the start of March. A real plunge in the Arctic oscillation as we got that Scandinavian high that produced the beast from the east. In fact, through most of the first half of March, we kept the AO at a negative territory. In the second half of March, we went more positive with the Arctic oscillation, although the latest that we're around neutral for the AO, and we're expecting to go back into negative territory in the first week of April, this period just here. The middle part of April, the second week of April, signs are that we're going to begin to lift the AO back up into potentially positive territory again. So it looks like we're trading negative and positive AO conditions. So essentially we're still seeing a bit of a blocking signal at times, probably left over from the sudden stratospheric warming that occurred back in February, but it's not as continuous as it was earlier in March. And overall, I think the blocking signal is now weakening as the effects from the sudden stratospheric warming begin to ease their grip. And it's about now when you'd expect that to begin to happen. So although it looks like the first week of April is going to continue to be quite unsettled and certainly starting off pretty cold, it does look as though we should start to see a recovery in the pattern and also probably in the temperature as well as we go further into April. This is the North Atlantic oscillation, same idea. The black line tells us where we've been with the NAO. Red lines at the end where the GFS ensemble is forecasting the NAO to go. At the start of March, when the AO went negative, so too did the NAO. Through most of March, we've generally been around or just a little bit under neutral, so not a very negative North Atlantic oscillation, but pretty negative, on the negative side of neutral, let's say. This is where we are right now, still hovering around or a little bit underneath neutral. GFS ensembles for the next week forecasting us to stay at this level. And then again, we see into the second week of March, going up to the middle part of the month, signs that the North Atlantic oscillation is also starting to move into positive territory. So it looks like we've got the AO and the NAO trending into positive territory. Remember, these are just indexes that are telling us what the weather is doing. They're not driving anything. They're actually being driven by the weather patterns. So when the AO and the NAO go into positive territory, it tells us that we're strengthening the westerly signal and we're sort of reverting back to a more typical type pattern after this fairly extended period of abnormal sort of weather patterns. And that, of course, is what we expected to see when we did the spring forecast and came up with the spring analogues. GFS Ensemble is looking at Coventry today. Someone just asked me to have a look at Cov. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Coventry. Starting off pretty cold today. It's a cold Easter Sunday. But after tomorrow's rain and snow pushes through, temperatures will begin to lift up. There we go, milder than average. And by next weekend, we may get our first true burst of proper spring warmth. I'll talk you through the temperatures we're expecting in the coming week in a few minutes, but we might lift those temperatures up to the mid to upper teens Celsius very briefly over next weekend. And then after that, generally trending a little bit above average. So it does look as though we are over the worst almost. Once today's out of the way and tomorrow morning, looks like we're going to be over, well, the whole of tomorrow for Scotland, but the rest of us tomorrow morning. Once that's out of the way, it looks like we are over the worst of the cold weather generally. Might be a little bit of a cold snap again on Thursday to Friday, but overall it looks like temperatures are beginning to lift up. Precipitation, plenty of rainfall spikes coming up in the next week to 10 days. Still signs of that drier signal though into the second week of April. Surface temperatures for Coventry looking like that. Again, starting off pretty cold. That's 10 degrees Celsius there. That's freezing there. So at the moment, we're having frosty nights and temperatures staying below 10 degrees all day, which is very, very poor for the start of April. The next few days, see the temperatures just struggling up close to 10 degrees, so certainly enough to get excited about. A little bit less cold, but still fairly cool really up to the end of the week. But then next weekend we see those temperatures lifting up into the mid to possibly upper teens Celsius just very briefly over next weekend. And then after that we sort of keep temperatures in the teens Celsius, albeit the lower teens Celsius, as we're going through into the second week of April. Certainly less cold and warmer compared to what we've had for most of March, and briefly very warm potentially next weekend just for a day or two. Temperature anomalies of the week ahead are looking like that. Still a little bit cooler than average for the UK and for Ireland. This is from the 31st of March to the 8th of April. I would expect to see these trending warmer in the week ahead. I won't be doing a video tomorrow. It's going to be the historic weather video tomorrow, looking at the spring and summer of 2013. So I won't be doing a regular weather video tomorrow. I'm going to have a day off. But on Tuesday, when we look at these charts, I would expect to see that showing a warmer than average temperature anomaly for the UK and Ireland. It'll be interesting to see. But we're not getting rid of the rain for the time being, so precipitation anomalies from the 31st of March to the 8th of April, they're coming out above average. This is how the GFS is looking for Thursday, bringing down this northwesterly wind, a little bit of a cooler snap on Thursday. Into Friday, the high pressure is across Germany. That starts to drag up the southerly winds. Yes, we turn the winds into the south. They will start to bring up warmer air as well out of sort of the southern part of France and the Mediterranean. So by Saturday we might, we're going to have to be lucky. It depends how quickly a weather front advances in from the Atlantic, but by Saturday we might get temperatures close to around 18 or 19 degrees Celsius across the eastern part of England, which will feel positively tropical compared to all of the cold days we've had just recently. That warmth won't last, and we'll see temperatures reverting back. It's not going cold, but reverting back towards the sort of lower teens Celsius by Sunday, as this area of low pressure moves in from the Atlantic and brings some rain. That could become quite a major feature by Monday. This is Monday midnight, just over a week away, with low pressure down to our south. That could be bringing heavy rain, maybe a little bit of thunder. It's that kind of system as we go through to Monday the 9th. Notice high pressure is trying to return to the north of Scotland again, so that's trying to get us back into those easterly winds. And as we go up towards day 10, and this is day 10, Wednesday 11th of April, we've got a ridge over Scandinavia with low pressure heading in from off the Atlantic. And as we run out beyond 10 days, actually we do start to turn the winds back into the east again as we run up towards the middle part of February. But do bear in mind, by this point, we're not talking about particularly cold winds. By April, it's very difficult to get cold air in from the east. So there's the upper air temperatures, for example, on Tuesday the 17th of April. And they do look generally quite mild, maybe even you would say for central parts of Europe fairly warm, despite the fact the wind is coming in from the east. So that would drag in a lot of cloud, and down on the surface I suppose it would be quite chilly, but no return to those frozen easterlies that we've had during the course of March. This is how the temperatures are looking with that GFS run. So starting today, really quite cold. Temperatures in the north, just 2, 3, 4 or 5. In the south, 6, 7 and 8. So really much colder than you would expect. By tomorrow, though, this is tomorrow afternoon, a real north-south split. So England and Wales, after that front has pushed through, taking all of that rain and potentially snow with it, we see the temperatures really lifting up. So we go up to around 10, 11, 12 across the bulk of England and Wales, whereas Northern Ireland, the north of Northern England and Scotland, you're stuck down at sort of just +1, +2. And in fact, 1 or 2 parts of central Scotland might have an ice day tomorrow. You might not get above freezing all day. Those are maximum temperatures for Tuesday, slowly lifting those warmer temperatures up from the south. So eastern parts of the country might be up to 14 or 15 degrees on Tuesday afternoon, very pleasantly mild. More generally, we're between around 10 and 13. Still looking quite cold for Scotland. Northern Ireland is turning milder. Now, the temperature drops a little bit on Wednesday, going more or less down to single figures again for most northern and western parts of the country, still holding on to 9 to 12 across the east. Thursday, so again, 9, 10 at best for England and Wales, quite cold up across Scotland, Northern Ireland. But then Friday sees the temperatures pushing up again, so we're going up to around 14 or 15 degrees across many parts of the country on Friday. And then Saturday, look at that, it's been waiting for some warmth. Those maximum temperatures across the eastern part of England on Saturday afternoon are going up to around 17, 18 or 19 degrees. You wouldn't probably rule out 20, that's 68 Fahrenheit, would feel positively tropical compared to all of the cold weather that we've had recently. Further north and west, it is much milder. Even there, temperatures around 14 or 15 degrees. But it's in the east and the southeast that we might get a true burst of true warmth, just very briefly, next weekend. And that's Sunday as far as we're going to go. Still sees pretty warm air down in the southeast, around 15, 16 or 17. Not quite as warm as Saturday. Elsewhere, we're going back closer to normal, really, for England and Wales, around 11 to 14, and going a bit cold again, actually, up across Scotland. ECMWF looks like that. So for Thursday, we're bringing down this chillier northerly wind, and then through to Friday, this ridge builds across the country, and we start to try and drag up that air from the south. There comes that warm push of air from the south on Saturday. So both the two main models are in agreement that next weekend, to start off with anyway, we do get this push of southerly winds, which will give us our first true warm spell of weather that we've had for many months, probably back to October. We go through to Sunday and turning a little bit more unsettled then as low pressure starts heading from off the Atlantic. As we head up towards the day 10 period, it all looks a bit messy, but essentially we keep high pressure close to the country. And if you have a look at the upper air, finally, it is still relatively warm with those upper air temperatures by day 10 with the ECMWF generally quite mild. So it does look as though the worst is very nearly over now for these cold temperatures. It appears that we're going to be seeing the temperatures gradually recovering in the days ahead. We possibly get our first true burst of warm air very briefly on Saturday before it cools down a bit on Sunday, but only going back towards average. And overall, it does look as though the first week to 10 days is going to be a lot milder compared to what we've had during the course of March. Right, that's your Sunday roundup done and dusted. So thanks for tuning in on your Easter Sunday. Don't forget to check out our analogues, part 3 of the summer analogues. And tonight, 7 o'clock, if you've entered the competition, I'm sure you'll be very, very interested to see whether you have won our prize. Somebody, 7 o'clock tonight, will win the combined weather dial. Come back then to see who it is. And good luck to everybody that has entered. And that's all for now. Enjoy the rest of your Easter Sunday. Thanks for watching.